All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about a company that's doing something, well, kind of wild. They've taken one of the oldest markets you can think of, antiques, and completely flipped it on its head. And how are they doing it? By borrowing a playbook from the world of high fashion streetwear. Seriously, it's an awesome story about how modern e commerce is breathing new life into old world charm. So here's the big question, the puzzle we're going to try and solve today. How on earth do you take something dusty, a one-of-a-kind antique that you can never restock, and sell it with the same speed and hype as a limited edition sneaker drop? I mean, it sounds impossible, right? These two worlds just don't seem to fit together. But trust me, the answer is brilliant. Okay, so meet the company at the center of all this, Sylvie Co. It's a vintage home goods brand founded by Chelsea McDonald, based up in New York's Hudson Valley. Now, here's a super important detail. Before this, McDonald had a whole career in the entertainment industry. And that expertise in creating content, that's not just a fun fact. It is a huge piece of this puzzle. You'll see why in a minute. All right, first things first. Let's really frame the core problem that Sylvie Co had to figure out. Because what they're doing, it's so much more than just, selling old furniture online. They've totally re-engineered the whole sales process for this very, very specific type of product. So here's the fundamental conflict, right? Think about it. E-commerce is all about speed, volume, and knowing you can get more of whatever sells. But antiques, they're the exact opposite. Every single piece is unique. Finding them is slow, it's a ton of work, and if something's a bestseller, too bad. You can't just order more. So the real question is, how do you build a fast-growing brand on what seems like such an unstable foundation? And here's the first piece of the answer. This is where it gets really smart. Instead of fighting against the fact that their products are scarce, they leaned all the way in. They took that scarcity, which should be a weakness, and turned it into their single greatest marketing weapon. They do it using something called the drop model. Now, if you're into brands like Supreme or you follow sneaker releases, you know exactly what this is. Instead of having a shop that's always open, they release these beautifully curated collections all at once at a very specific, pre-announced time. And what does that do? It creates this massive wave of demand, this powerful sense of FOMO, the fear of missing out. If you don't grab it the second it drops, it is gone forever. Okay, now what's so wild about their process is the timing. Just look at this. Steps 1, 2, and 3, that can take months. We're talking about a long, difficult process. Flying to Europe, digging through markets in France or Spain, shipping everything back in a giant container, and then carefully cleaning and researching every single piece. All of that slow, intense, methodical work leads to step 4, the drop, where the entire collection can sell out in just a few minutes. It's insane. But look, the drop model, that's only half the story. The other, absolutely critical part isn't just how they sell, it's the story they build around the products before the sale even happens. And this is where that entertainment background we talked about really comes into play. And this quote nails it. This is the key. You're not just buying a vintage chair. No way. You're buying the story of how it was discovered in some little French market. You're buying into the founder's unique vision. You're buying the whole treasure hunt experience. Sylvie Co literally figured out how to monetize the narrative. And this is exactly how they do it. It's genius. Instead of hiding all the logistical headaches, they turn them into content. The sourcing trips, they become these romantic adventures to far-off lands. The warehouse, that's the exclusive Sylvie estate. They share the history of every single piece, and that builds this really deep emotional connection with their audience, who, by the way, are mostly millennials and Gen Z. People who really care about authenticity and sustainability, not just another mass-produced thing. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit and look at the competitive landscape. Because all of this strategy, it builds a really powerful moat around their business. When you put Sylvie Co side by side with its competitors, you start to see just how radically different their whole model is. The number one biggest difference? It all comes down to ownership. On a platform like, say, Chairish, you have tons of individual sellers listing their own stuff, and the platform just takes a commission. But Sylvie Co, they own every single item they sell. Now, that means they take on all the risk, sure, but it also means they get total control over the curation, the pricing, and, this is the big one, the entire profit margin. This chart really lays it all out perfectly. Just look at that row for customer urgency. For a big box store like Pottery Barn, it's low. That sofa will be there next week. For a marketplace like Chairish, it's maybe moderate, but for Sylvie Co, it's extreme. That is the drop model in action. You can see how every single choice they've made, from inventory to curation, is designed to create a totally different, high-stakes customer experience. And financially, this is the big payoff. On those other consignment platforms, the money from a sale gets split up between the seller and the platform. But with Sylvie Co's model, because they own the inventory, they capture 100% of the gross margin on every single sale. That is a seriously powerful financial engine, as long as they can keep things selling out fast. But it's not all perfect, of course. A model this unique, well, it comes with a pretty unique set of risks. The very things that make the company so special are also the things that create some major vulnerabilities, especially when you start thinking about long-term growth. For starters, you've got massive key person risk. The brand's entire vibe is tied to the founder's personal taste. What happens if she wants to step back? Then there's logistical fragility. If a one-of-a-kind lamp gets smashed in shipping, that's it. That revenue is just gone forever. And you've got to face the fact that there's a natural ceiling to this. You just can't mass-produce one-of-a-kind finds. And finally, these are delicate things, They're sensitive to everything from a bumpy ride to a change in humidity. So when you boil it all down, you get to this core paradox. The brand's greatest strength, that founder-led personal vision, is also its biggest bottleneck. The challenge for them, if they want to grow, is to figure out how to scale that vision without losing the magic that made them so successful in the first place. So where do they go from here? What does the next chapter look like? How can Sylvie Co actually navigate these challenges and build a business that's not just cool, but sustainable and scalable? Well, the analysis points to a pretty clear three-part strategy. Okay, first up, brand extension. They can look at their sales data, see which one-of-a-kind pieces were the most popular, and create a line of high-quality reproductions. That gives them a scalable, repeatable source of income. Second, they have to get serious about logistics. No more winging it. They need to partner with real fine art shipping firms to protect their irreplaceable items. And third, the founder has to shift her role. She needs to go from being the picker to being the head curator, training a whole team of international buyers to scale up the sourcing. Really, the ultimate goal here is to walk a very, very fine line. They have to figure out how to bring in more volume and predictability without killing that authentic treasure hunt vibe that got people hooked. It's all about protecting the magic while building a real, sustainable company. And all of this leaves us with one last really interesting question to chew on. What Sylvie Co shows us so powerfully is that in today's market, especially for premium stuff, maybe the product itself isn't even the most important thing anymore. Maybe the real value and the whole future of retail is in selling a compelling, authentic, and perfectly curated story.